Welcome to An Interview in History. Imagine a podcast that serves as a bridge across time, connecting listeners to the voices of history's most impactful figures. Each episode is a deep dive into the lives and legacies of these individuals, exploring not just their well-documented achievements, but also uncovering lesser-known facts that shaped their contributions to our world. From scientists who unlocked the mysteries of the universe to activists who fought for social change, each story is a testament to the indelible mark they left on society. This journey through history will not only educate, but also inspire listeners to appreciate the intricate tapestry of human progress. Hi, I'm Steve Burig, your host. This week we'll be talking with Charles Lutwidge Dodson, better known by his pen name, Lewis Carroll, who was an English author, poet, mathematician, photographer, and Anglican deacon. His most notable works are Alice's Adventures in Wonderland in 1865 and its sequel Through the Looking Glass in 1871. He was noted for his facility with wordplay, logic, and fantasy. His poems Jabberwocky 1871 and The Hunting of the Snark 1876 are classified in the genre of literary nonsense. Some of Alice's nonsensical Wonderland logic reflects his published work on mathematical logic. This interview takes place on December 4th, 1897. Good day, Mr. Carroll. It's such an honor to have you here with us today. Can we start by talking about your early family life? Of course. I was born Charles Lutwidge Dodson in 1832 in Daresbury, Cheshire, England. My family was predominantly Northern English, with Irish connections. My father, Charles Dodson, was an active and highly conservative clergyman of the Church of England, who later became a bishop. Most of my male ancestors were army officers or Anglican clergymen. My great-grandfather, Charles Dodson, had risen through the ranks of the church to become the Bishop of Elphin in rural Ireland. My paternal grandfather, also named Charles, was an army captain fatality of the Irish Rebellion of 1803, when his two sons were hardly more than babies. The older of these sons, yet another Charles Dodson, was my father. I went to Rugby School, where I was unhappy. I cannot say that any earthly considerations would induce me to go through my 3 years again. I can honestly say that if I could have been secure from annoyance at night, comparative trifles to bear. I did not claim to suffer from bullying, but the little boys were the main target of older bullies at Rugby. It's hard for those who have only known me as gentle to believe it. It is, nevertheless, true that long after I left school, my name was remembered as that of a boy who well knew how to use my fist in defense of a righteous cause, which was a protection of the smaller boys. I left Rugby at the end of 1849 and matriculated at the University of Oxford as a member of my father's old college, Christ Church. After waiting for rooms in college to become available, I went into residence. I reverted to the other family tradition and took holy orders. I was mathematically gifted and won a double first degree, which could have been the prelude to a brilliant academic career. Instead, I became a country parson. I had been at Oxford only 2 days when I received a summons home. My mother had died of inflammation of the brain, perhaps meningitis or a stroke, at the age of 47. I understand you had quite a varied scholastic career. Tell me about that. Yes, indeed. My early academic career veered between high promise and irresistible distractions. I did not always work hard, but was exceptionally gifted, and achievement came easily to me. I obtained first-class honors in mathematics moderations, and was soon afterwards nominated to a studentship by my father's old friend, Canon Edward Bussey. I obtained first-class honors in the final honor school of mathematics, standing first on the list, and thus graduated with a Bachelor of Arts. I remained at Christ Church studying and teaching, but the next year I failed an important scholarship exam through my self-confessed inability to apply myself to study. Now, let's talk about your professional life. Obviously, you were gifted in mathematics. Can you go into that? Yes. My talent as a mathematician won me the Christ Church Mathematical Lectureship in 1855, which I continued to hold for the next 26 years. I had a knack for numbers and logic, which greatly influenced my literary work, especially in terms of creating complex, fantastical worlds. Despite my early unhappiness, I remained at Christ Church in various capacities. Can you tell me about your religious views? I believe that when you and I come to lie down for the last time, if only we can keep firm hold on the great truths Christ taught us, our own utter worthlessness and his infinite worth, and that he has brought us back to our one Father and made us his brethren, and so brethren to one another, we shall have all we need to guide us through the shadows. Most assuredly, I accept to the full the doctrines that Christ died to save us, that we have no other way of salvation open to us but through his death, and that is by my faith in him, and through no merit of ours, that we are reconciled to God. And most assuredly I can cordially say, I owe all to him who loved me and who died on the cross of Calvary. Very well said. Now let's get back to your childhood. What kind of child were you? I was the oldest boy in a family of 11 children. Being the eldest, I often made up stories and games for my younger siblings, which, in hindsight, was a precursor to my storytelling career. I was also quite fond of puppet shows and marionette plays, which fueled my imagination. But speaking of siblings, did they influence your career? Oh, yes, definitely. My siblings were my initial audience. As a young adult, I understand you were tall, and as a child you had some health issues. Yes, quite so. As a young adult, I was about 6 feet tall and slender, and I had curly brown hair and blue eyes. As a very young child, I suffered a fever that left me deaf in one ear. At the age of 17, I suffered a severe attack of whooping cough, which was probably responsible for my chronically weak chest in later life. In early childhood, I acquired a stammer, which I have referred to as my hesitation. It has remained throughout my life. I have been far more acutely aware of it than most people whom I met. Some say I caricatured myself as the dodo in Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, referring to my difficulty in pronouncing my last name. My stammer has troubled me, but it was never so debilitating that it prevented me from applying my other personal qualities to do well in society. On a more personal note, was there someone special in your life? Contrary to popular belief, I never married nor had children. I was quite introverted and preferred the company of children, which was a significant factor in creating characters that children could relate to. Louis, what was the first work you published? Well, in March of 1856, I published my first piece of work under the name that would make me famous. A romantic poem called Solitude appeared in The Train under the authorship of Lewis Carroll. This pseudonym was a play on my real name. Lewis was the Anglican form of Leviticus, which was the Latin for Ludwig, and Carroll, an Irish surname similar to the Latin name Carolus, from which comes the name Charles. The transition went as follows. Charles Ludwig, translated into Latin as Carolus Leviticus, which was then translated back into the English as Carroll Lewis. And then I reversed to make Lewis Carroll. This pseudonym was chosen by editor Edmund Yates from a list of 4 I submitted, the others being Edgar Cuthwillis, Edgar W.C. Westhill, and Lewis Carroll. Interesting. But now let's talk about your most famous work, Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. What inspired it? Alice was inspired by a real girl named Alice Liddell, the daughter of the Dean of Christ Church. One day we were rowing on the river, and I started telling her a story which eventually became Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. It was after one such expedition on the 4th of July, 1862, I invented the outline of the story that eventually became my first and greatest commercial success. I told the story to Alice Liddell, and she begged me to write it down, and I eventually, after much delay, presented her with a handwritten, illustrated manuscript entitled Alice's Adventures Underground. Before this, the family of friend and mentor George MacDonald read my incomplete manuscript, and the enthusiasm of the MacDonald children encouraged me to seek publication. In 1863, I had taken the unfinished manuscript to Macmillan, the publisher, who liked it immediately. After the possible alternative titles were rejected, Alice Among the Fairies and Alice's Golden Hour, the work was finally published as Alice's Adventures in Wonderland in 1865 under my Lewis Carroll pen name, which I had first used some 9 years earlier. The illustrations this time were by Sir John Tenniel. I felt that a published book should need the skills of a professional artist. The overwhelming commercial success of the first Alice book changed my life in many ways. The fame of my alter ego, Lewis Carroll, soon spread around the world. I was inundated with fan mail and with sometimes unwanted attention. The book, in essence, was my tribute to the innocence and imagination of childhood. Why do you think the book has had such a lasting impact? I believe it's because of its universal appeal. It's a journey into a fantastical world where normal rules don't apply. I think everyone, irrespective of age, resonates with that sense of adventure and curiosity. The book allows readers to let their imaginations run wild, and that's a powerful, enduring quality. Now, weren't some of your characters based on real individuals? Yes, some were. Alice is Alice Liddell. The Lorry is Lorena Liddell. The Eaglet is Edith Liddell. The Duck was colleague Reverend Robinson Duckworth. And as I've said before, the Dodo was myself. That's very interesting how that all came about. Now, how is your life in retirement? I continue my writing and mathematical work, but at a more leisurely pace. I enjoy photography and have a penchant for inventing things. I also remained in touch with my childhood friends, for their youthful innocence was something I greatly cherished. Well, it's been a pleasure talking with you, Lewis. Your life and works continue to inspire and capture the imagination of readers around the world. Any final words? The pleasure is all mine. But let me say that to me it seems that to give happiness is a far nobler goal than to attain it, and that what we exist for is much more a matter of relations to others than a matter of individual progress, much more a matter of helping others to heaven than of getting there ourselves. Remember, imagination is the only weapon in the war against reality. Charles Ludwig Dodson, or Lewis Carroll, died of pneumonia following influenza on 14 January 1898 at his sister's home, the Chestnuts, in Guildford in the county of Surrey. He was 2 weeks away from turning 66 years old. His funeral was held at the nearby St. Mary's Church. His body was buried at the Mount Cemetery in Guildford. He is commemorated at the All Saints Church, Daresbury, in its stained glass windows depicting the characters from Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, erected in 1935. And now, another forgotten history. Maud Adams, born Maud Ewing Adams Kiskaden, on November 11, 1872, in Salt Lake City, Utah, became one of the most celebrated actresses of the late 19th and early 20th centuries. Introduced to the world of theater by her mother, also an actress, Adams developed her craft at a young age. Her early immersion in the arts helped her build a distinguished career that would make her a household name in American theater. By the 1890s, Maud Adams had already established herself as a prominent Broadway star, known for her performances in both classic and contemporary plays. However, she became immortalized for her portrayal of Peter Pan in J.M. Barrie's 1905 stage production of the same name. Her performance was the mischievous boy who refused to grow up, captivated audience, and became her signature role. Throughout her career, she collaborated with renowned playwrights like J.M. Barrie and Charles Frohman, solidifying her place as one of the leading figures in American theater during the Victorian and Edwardian eras. Adams was admired not only for her talent, but also for her professionalism and elegance, qualities that made her a role model for aspiring actresses of her time. Her contributions to the stage helped shape the golden age of American theater, and her legacy continues to be remembered today as one of the most iconic and influential figures in theatrical history. Join us next week when we talk with Toulouse-Lautrec, a famous painter, printmaker, draftsman, caricaturist, and illustrator whose immersion in the colorful and theatrical life of Paris in the late 19th century. Until then, take care.